Guys, Boss and Gossip here. This is my post-fight video. Just watched Oleksansr Usyk versus Krzysztof Glowacki on Sky. First and foremost, good that Sky picked the fight up. Nice fight to have on Sky Sports on a Saturday night. Certainly, I was pleased to sit down and watch it tonight. And yeah, we have a new world champion in the cruiserweight division. Oleksansr Usyk defeats Glowacki by unanimous decision, 117-111 on two judges' scorecards, and I think 119-109. To be honest, I actually was more in line with the 119-109. I didn't sit down and score the fight religiously with a pen and paper, but really I felt that Oleksansr Usyk was getting the better of everything in there, and I pretty much gave him every round without too much doubt in my mind, really. For me, the levels in class were pretty vast in there. Glowacki was following Usyk round the ring, looking for a big haymaker. He looked hopelessly outgunned in terms of speed, athleticism, and just general technique, really. He was wild. He was loading up on shots and charging in, whereas Usyk was working really nicely and showing that amateur boxing pedigree that we know he's got in spades. Having sat down and watched the fight and seen Usyk go 12 rounds, I've got to commend him on his stamina. I've got to commend him on how quickly he's adapted to the professional game. To beat a guy like Krzysztof Glowacki in the 10th fight is extremely impressive. Usyk's footwork is world leading. If we look at the cruiserweight and heavyweight division, there aren't too many heavyweights you would pick, or too many cruiserweights you would pick, who can move like Oleksansr Usyk. His footwork is sensational. His jab's very good. Defensively, I think he's quite sound. He doesn't take a lot of punishment in there. In many ways, his footwork is his defence. I think he keeps a nice guard, he moves very well, and he's educated in terms of angles as well. The angles he positions his body, some of the upper body movement he's throwing in there. He's an awkward, tough guy to fight who makes it stylistically very difficult for you. Now, as we've watched Usyk coming up through the ranks, I've never been someone who's really bought into his power. I thought clearly he's carried some power. I'm not saying he's not heavy-handed. But I've never kind of bought into this idea that he's going to be a dominant knockout artist. For me, it was always going to be a case that in a fight like this, he probably wouldn't be able to get a knockout. And we did see that there was some limits to his power in this fight. He landed some fantastic punches on Glowacki. And Glowacki showed great heart and great chin to stay in there for 12 rounds, to be honest. But some of the punches Usyk were landing on Glowacki, they were pretty spectacular, and Glowacki didn't budge. So in terms of power, obviously Usyk's got some level of power, and he's someone you don't want to let hit you at will. I think as he fights at world title level now, probably we're going to see him more as a technically minded, out and out pure boxer, as opposed to a power puncher, as opposed to someone who's going out and blasting people out. I wouldn't pick Usyk to be knocking out the other cruiserweight champions, to be honest. I think when I say the other cruiserweight champions, I don't necessarily mean Lebedev and Bellew. I more mean the top tier of the cruiserweights. Those guys, Bradis, Huck, that sort of level of guy. But looking at him and seeing the performance he put on in the ring tonight, there isn't actually a cruiserweight out there I'd pick to beat Usyk at this stage. Glowacki is a fighter we shouldn't underestimate just because he's lost this fight. Glowacki's a guy who beat Marco Huck, who was the definite number one in the division, and he then went and defended his belts well against Steve Cunningham, who is a fighter I respect tremendously. So Glowacki came into this fight, as far as I'm concerned, as clearly the number one cruiserweight in the world, and Usyk's beaten him, and he's beaten him well. He's beaten him wide, and maybe it's not even an exaggeration to say at times he looked like he was schooling him in there. He was different levels. Usyk, already the number one cruiserweight in the world, already a fighter I would pick over anyone else in the division. And to be honest, I know he's only got one win on his resume, but the nature of the win, the opponent, and the way he's taken care of business, I wouldn't be surprised whatsoever if people start including Usyk in the bottom end of their top 10 pound for pound lists, and I think there's some argument to have that, the way he's gone out and beat Glowacki there. I really do. And I give him immense credit for that. You know, I really, really like what I see in Usyk. He's a well-rounded fighter. He's got a lot of elements for the total package. He doesn't neglect the body, fast hands, brilliant combinations, puts punches very well together, good punch variety, great movement, defensively sound, one of the best movers you'll see out there. However, and there's always a however in my videos, and there's a however here, for me to talk about him moving up to heavyweight, nonsensical. I don't know if you guys noticed when he was speaking to Vitaly Klitschko after the fight, but Vitaly Klitschko is the modern heavyweight physique. In fact, Vitaly Klitschko is actually a considerably smaller man than the likes of Tyson Fury, the likes of Deontay Wilder, you know, those sort of guys who are ruling the roost at present. You know, I look at Usyk and I see him very much as an out-and-out cruiserweight. I don't see him as this heavyweight champion in waiting that most people seem to think he is. The way he fights and how he relies on jab and amateur-style boxing, amateur-style combinations from the outside, the way he does that, it's going to be much harder for him to implement that kind of style against giants. If you're fighting a guy like Tyson Fury, who's got such ridiculous reach and range, it's just going to be very, very, very hard to get the job done. If you're a jabber, and if you're an outside fighter who's got, you know, who's that much considerably smaller. When fighters carry tremendous power, it's different because you only need to land once. But as I say, I've never been completely sold. Just watching the way Usyk fights, I've never been completely sold that he was this cataclysmic puncher. And having seen him tonight, I'm even more convinced that he's more of a boxer than an out-and-out puncher. And I just think at heavyweight, I just don't think it's the right weight class for him. And that's not a negative on him. Heavyweight isn't the right class for most people who fight below heavyweight. But Usyk, it's early days. I don't think we should get too sucked into the heavyweight chat just yet. Fundamentally, the guy's 10 fights in. He's just won a cruiserweight world title, and I'd like to see him go on and unify. I'd like to see him fight Lebedev. I'd like to see him fight Bellew. I'd like to see him fight Marco Huck. I'd like to see him clean out the division and establish himself as an out-and-out number one fighter. He's not an old guy. I think he's 28, 29. If he's looking to end his career at heavyweight, and I understand there's huge, celebrity and finance in the heavyweight division, so I understand if he's doing that. 28, 29 is not an old man in the context of the heavyweight division. He could do 2 or 3 more years at cruiserweight and then make the transition. But I'd like to see him unify the division before considering it. And just having seen what I've seen of him so far, I don't think he'd find the work as easy at heavyweight as he does at cruiserweight. We've seen cruiserweights go up before. I mean, let's use David Haye as an example. David Haye went up before, but David Haye wasn't the kind of guy who is going to stand there and jab with a Tyson Fury, or stand there and jab with a Vladimir Klitschko or a Deontay Wilder. David Haye's the kind of guy who's going to take that speed advantage from the lower weight class, be out of range, and then ambush and explode into range. And David Haye's got that game-changing power where a single punch can change the course of a fight. With Usyk, very, very good fighter, potentially a better fighter than David Haye. Does he carry the same power? No. Stylistically, is he going to ambush and charge in? Maybe, but I think he's more, as I say, of a guy who likes to use his movement, use his jab and box, and he's very, very good at it. But I'm not so sure that style will have the same effect at heavyweight. So I'd like to see him stay at cruiserweight for now, keep learning his craft, get some more professional experience under his belt, win some other belts, get in some big fights, and cement himself as a pound-for-pound fighter, purely in the cruiserweight division, or purely from working within the cruiserweight division. That's my thoughts. I was very impressed tonight. Please let me know your take. How did you score the fight? How impressed were you with Usyk? Where does he go from here? Give me your thoughts on his potential future at heavyweight. If you've enjoyed this video, please hit the thumbs up button. If you're new to the channel, do take the time to subscribe. Thanks very much for watching, guys. I appreciate it.